Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the KNT Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Angie.
And I'm Professor D. And for today's episode, we'll be discussing moral relativism. And on today's episode, we also have a guest. Would the guest like to introduce themselves, please?
Yes, I'm Marquavias. It's an honor to be on the podcast with you guys.
Oh, glad to have you on, Marquavias. So, I would like to hear some of the starting thoughts since today I'm acting more of a mediator rather than an instigator of concepts here. So, Anchi, what are your starting thoughts on moral relativism?
Okay, so I'm just going to give some basic definitions over here. So, moral relativism would be the idea that there's no universal or absolute set of moral principles. Okay, and then metaethical moral relativism would be there are no objective grounds for preferring the moral values of one culture over another. Okay, so
Oh, wait, did you say cultural? Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm already butting in now. I think they call it cultural relativism, and
yes,
I agree with
that's different. That's different than metaethical though, because cultural relativism says in one culture something's going to be right, but in another one it could be wrong morally.
Right.
Right. That's cultural moral relativism, right? Metaethical moral relativism says when you're looking at multiple cultures, right? There's no objective grounds for preferring one moral system over another one.
Well, I think that really follows the same thought process.
No. It's different. It's different because this one says basically we cannot prove. Basically, this one's going with skepticism, right? Where, in the sense that we cannot prove. We think that we can't prove anything absolutely. So therefore, you can't absolutely say that something is moral because you can't absolutely prove the things, the presuppositions, the way you get there. You know what I'm saying? So you can you can think it, but you can't be sure of it. Just like we can't be sure we exist or something like that.
Okay.
It has to do with the meta.
I can see that.
But that was good. That was a good question. Okay, so and that was good. We got more into it. Basically, the way I think about moral relativism, this is my position, right? I think that somebody can do something that is bad. So basically, it's not ethical in the sense that it has negative consequences, right? So somebody can do something that has negative consequences, but they have good intentions, right? And then that means that the action itself is not immoral. So that person did not commit an immoral action, but they committed a bad one in the sense of consequences.
Well, it all depends. Okay, well, I think morality requires being self-aware, right? Because
Of course,
we don't. Because if a person were to do something that would create bad consequences, or should we say, led to it hurt someone else, let's say,
right.
but the person were thinking that they were doing good, then they wouldn't consider themselves immoral, and then you can't consider that person immoral because they're thinking they're good.
I would agree with you. I would agree. That's basically what I was saying. Basically, the action they took was not immoral, but at the same time, that action had negative consequences, and it wasn't, quote unquote right for them to do that, but it wasn't morally wrong for them to do that. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think we agree.
Mhm.
So, Mark, what do you think? Marquavias, what do you think about this? Thoughts in general?
I would say on what you just discussed, what you just said. I agree with that completely because if someone has if they don't have malintent and they have the right intentions in doing something, even though that may result in negative consequences, I wouldn't really say then that's immoral, even though you do have negative consequences. For me, I would look more on your intentions. I don't know. Let's say this. You see, I don't know, a man burning in a building. You have good intentions to save that person, and when you go to save that person, the result is that you and the man, perish. You may have had good intentions, but in the end it didn't end up good for either you or the person in the building. Like that's just like how I look at it. I look at more of the intention than the actual like consequences.
Okay, question. And I apologize for veering off, but
That's okay. We like tangents.
it's
Yeah.
just really urging me. It's a really urging question. So, what are your thoughts on calling all these all these people working in the hospitals, the nurses and doctors here during the pandemic?
Hmm.
What do you think about calling them heroes?
That's a great question. I really like that. That was good.
Yeah, that's a really
Marquavias,
good question.
Marquavias, can you weigh in on this?
Um, well, I mean, since they're obviously you would associate like their jobs, like doctors and nurses, automatically that puts them in a good category, like they're helping people out. But at the same time, like it's basically their job. Like I wouldn't really say, like how would I compare this? Um, how should I say this? Let's say like you have a restaurant owner in the neighborhood, like them providing for the neighborhood, like like services, like some people can go eat there. Like just because like they do something for the benefit of the people doesn't make them heroes. Just like if you have like nurse or doctors, that's automatically their jobs. Like
Right.
you can't
So
like it's complicated. It's
the essential quality here is that they're aware of a pre-existing obligation, right?
exactly.
When someone, when you have someone, let's say, I'll use your previous example, save somebody from a burning building, that person didn't wake up in the morning thinking that they were going to save somebody from a burning building. Maybe if it
Mhm.
was a firefighter, yeah, I would say that that
Exactly.
firefighter was probably expecting that in the day. But so, but people still call firefighters heroes. But the thing is, they're already performing their obligations. So,
Mhm.
I would have to, I would have to disagree with calling, firefighters heroes. They're doing their obligation that they
Exactly.
voluntarily chose to do. They're getting paid for it. Um, so I wouldn't. I mean, same goes with the health. All the people
The
working
health workers,
in
yeah.
hospitals. That they before this coronavirus thing, they were still going to hospitals and working there. They're still getting paid. Actually, in fact, I think because of the pandemic, they're getting more getting more pay or getting some more benefits, and and in that aspect, I would agree with it because because I mean, obviously they're working probably more than before. But calling them heroes, that's quite a stretch, I'd say.
Hold on. So you guys make some good points. Um okay, so I
Can I add on to like just one point?
yes,
Okay.
and then I'll
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. So like you may also like at this time call them heroes because like you would associate like this coronavirus, like it's this more like severe time than usual, and like well it all goes back to what like you said, the obligation, but then on the other hand, like the severity of the situation, I feel like that's what gives them like this hero status. They're like, because like it's such
Yeah,
a severe,
and
like
the
like
thing is that when you're dealing with something like a pathogen, which you can't see, you can't hear,
mm,
you can't sense it, right? Until you get sick, that's the only time when you can feel the consequences of its presence. But other than that, who are you gonna turn to? You like it just it's basically intangible, and so we're very quick to turn to somebody to call them heroes. We're quick to
yeah.
cling on to somebody when it's something tough like this. If it was like, okay, I'm gonna apply a childish example, like let's say a zombie apocalypse, right?
That's a great
I mean,
example.
it would be a lot easier to take it into your own hands. Okay, that's kind of a poor example because you can easily disinfect some surfaces, but you get the point. Um, like zombies are something that you can see, hear, I guess smell. Well, you can sense them, right?
Yeah.
But pathogens not so much. So that's why we're
I think you're I think something's going on there, Dennis.
Yeah, I think so. I'll lower down my notification volume from my phone. But anyways,
Nah, that wasn't your fault. That was
um,
a clown. Anyway,
yeah, you might be right. Anyways, I'm kind of in a circus right now. Um, yeah, but with zombies, we're a lot more. We're not going to be as quick to depend on somebody. We're willing to take the matter into our own hands before we turn onto somebody. But with pathogens, you can't sense them. So, we see all society turn to the experts in that deals with pathogens really quickly. And I'm sorry, but I'm seeing every single day how we're clapping for them and calling them heroes. Like they're supposed to be doing that, all right? It's not really like they chose that as their job before the pandemic happened, all right?
hold
They've
on.
been
This is
doing
where I
this.
want to weigh in. This is where I want to weigh in.
Okay, all right. What do you want to weigh in on?
Okay. So I agree basically with what both of you are saying, but I think this is the thing. First of all, what I was gonna say to your question, my first response was basically, they're doing something good. Who am I to say? I don't think we should call them heroes. I don't know. Like, I don't really
Yeah,
have.
I do think they're doing
No,
something
wait,
good,
wait,
but
hold on.
okay.
Well, but I do agree with what you're saying. But this is my more nuanced response. So, based off what you guys are saying, I agree with your points. But at the same time, I think this is why they get the hero label, and this is good. Okay, this is good. With the
Well, I lowered it.
with the firefighter example. As well. So a firefighter risks his life, right, to go save other people, right? So he puts his life on the
Hmm.
line. The doctors at this time are doing the same thing because they're exposed to that invisible enemy, like you said. They're in a very dangerous situation, right?
Yes, they are.
But they put their lives on the line, in order to do their job or to save other people. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where they get this hero status. Do I think we should be calling all of them heroes and stuff like that? I don't know. I feel like hero is an extreme word, but I mean it's not causing any harm to call them heroes, and they are doing something really good, and they're risking their lives and stuff. So
And I
Well,
would say like honestly, it's not even like harm. Like I would say like because I know like firsthand account that like these people don't even really want to be called heroes because I know like what is it? For example, like my dad, like he's a nurse. He has to if his supervisor like gives him a call that like I want you to see this patient and like the patient has COVID, he doesn't have a choice to say, oh, I want to see this patient. I don't. He knows like it's his job. Like the less questions asked, the better. Like you take care of it and job done. And he like I asked him, I'm like, do you really want to be like considered a like hero by everyone for like what you do? He's like, no, I just do it because I do what I do because I like to help people and it's my job. I don't really want to be considered a hero for this. It's just someone doing their job.
that's interesting.
right. So it's a sense of being overglorified,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, bouncing off your point, saying there was no harm, there is harm done, not on people, but on our culture when
How?
everything is exaggerated, superficial, and we're completely inflating the meaning of hero when
Okay,
you're
hold on. That's a
like
that's
it.
a that's a good point. That's a good point. But I'm gonna counter that.
Okay,
So
okay.
because this is actually very interesting. The thing is, I feel like maybe we shouldn't even use the term hero at all. And on top of that, basically, this is where that comes from. I don't think really we should idolize anybody or have heroes for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? You know how some people say, he was my hero, right? Somebody you look up to, things like
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
that. Maybe I heard this one time and I found this really interesting. Because I used to have people who I called my heroes, right? But now I don't do it anymore. So because I heard this, right? So maybe we shouldn't call anybody our heroes, right? Like we look up to people, but we shouldn't idolize them and put them on a pedestal like that. Everybody, they're human, bro. Like they're human. They're not like above us, right? And at the same time, people have like a bad side to them as well. So you can't idolize somebody like some people might say like I don't know, they idolize Christopher Columbus because he like revolutionized everything, whatever, right? Yeah,
Well, that's very
he had a major
questionable.
impact.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I know he had a major impact, right? But at the same time,
Yeah, I did.
he had negative things he did. So in the same way, you can find like maybe that's an extreme example, right? Like you say, but at the same time, people, they're not perfect, so we shouldn't idolize them that way. We can look up to them, and that's very good. but maybe we shouldn't put anybody on the hero pedestal.
So, okay, I'd like to counter that too, because you're you're taking a very strong definition of hero, and I think hero should be used, and people will like logically would call someone else a hero when they model some kind of action that like they would want to do. Like, okay, I would call a person a hero, right? Because in my mind, that's what I want to do. That's how I see it. Like, in order to attain that level of perceived moral superiority, that okay, moral superiority is a strong assumption. I would
Well,
say, I guess willpower. They, like an arrangement of willpower and morality that like okay, someone a child may call a firefighter a hero, and they do often do that, right? Because they've saved people. The people are very grateful for them. I don't know, basic basic example, but the child uh, calls them a hero because that's something that they'd want to be. And as often you do see children also want to become also like what do you want to be when you grow up? They also give some kind of example like that, like they want to be a firefighter.
that was interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Marquavias, you have thoughts?
Not really. No, like basically, Professor D reiterated like everything I would have said about her. Really.
Well, I apologize. I'm like a loose cannon here.
No, that was good. I think we've raised some good points. I like what you guys are saying overall. Okay, Professor D, you have anything else on your mind? Because that was good, wherever that came from.
Yes, another question has been burning in my mind. What do you guys think about private land?
Oh, you mean like bought land, like land that like been people will
Well,
buy?
I guess just in general, the commoditization of land.
I think
What
you
do you
already
guys?
know. I think you already know what I think about it.
Well, I know your answer, but Marquavius, what do you think?
Okay.
I actually, because like you've heard his point before. I would like to hear Andrea's point, like his view about it.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's basically the same as Dennis. I'll try to. Okay, yeah, I'll try to give my expression of it, and then I want Professor D to kind of build off that or evaluate. But anyway, so okay, so basically, basically we think, or I think that it's not a good thing that we commodify that. It's a part of nature. You can't really own like a piece of like. Okay, yeah, people can take control of it,
Nothing
but
gave you that ownership. Like, in order to
okay,
transfer a commodity, there had to be an owner before it that sold it to a buyer.
okay,
Who
that's
who
interesting. That's more of like
who
a
told the
technical.
person who told the person that they own the land?
Well, they claimed it
It
for
just
themselves.
right. That's the problem. You can't just do that because we know with commodities that we made that a person made, like let's say some kind of manufactured good, we can't just go around claiming anything is ours. We know that there has to be a producer, and that producer is the owner, and
Hold
the
on,
owner and the seller.
hold on.
I mean,
I wouldn't take that approach. I would say, that's actually interesting. You said that. But we can go to that. But hold on. I would say that basically, land, especially, other things included, but land especially is something that people would own collectively. I would say like so they would have like that would kind of be I don't know what to call it, but let's just say that would kind of be public property. Like the people themselves who inhabit that land would own it, but not like own it to sell it, own it to whatever, own it like, as in they live on it.
well,
So
own it to live on it, to use it.
well, yeah. They have autonomy, so they use it for how they think.
Right.
Right. Okay. So that's what I would say. Like it's a collective type of ownership where, and when somebody owns it by themselves, like that's not right. Basically. Well, I'm not prepared for this, so I guess I'm not wording it correctly.
No, I would agree with your sense that it's like it's not a right, but I think that like what you believe it's pretty like idealistic because like if you look at the world as it is today, like it's not possible to have what you're proposing. Like we everything like it's so you have like businesses everywhere, everything is owned like by government. It sounds good like in theory, but it's just like not possible to do with the way the world is shaped today.
Professor D.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're too infected with this mentality of, uh, yeah, there's this land here, and of course the government owns it at first. We have to sell it off. We have to sell it off to somebody. We have to sell it off to a business, to some or any kind of private party. Um, and I think, I mean, it's kind of like all over the world at this
It's
point,
everywhere.
especially
It's
in
everywhere.
this age of global corporatism. Um, but I mean, we still are. I mean, some countries, do still differentiate a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, throughout the decades, stuff concepts like Amazon, right? It's or like Disney. I mean, these corporations are growing so large that I definitely think that in the future, if this trend continues, um, like I wouldn't be surprised if they take over governments and they're going to be the ones really managing properties. What do you guys think?
I think that's interesting, but one sec. I kind of disagree with you guys where well, okay. So Marquavias says he thinks our point is idealistic, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I can see that. But okay, so idealistic, and then he thinks also that is going to be impossible with the way the world is today. But
Mm-hmm.
I agree to an extent. I was I wouldn't exactly agree with Professor D either. I don't know. This has actually surprised me. But
You don't agree in corporatocracy?
no, that all the things you said at the end I agree with. But at the beginning you said you agree with Mark on that point where it's impossible in today's world with all the businesses and stuff like that. But hold on a sec. I think yeah, you're right in a sense where it's impossible in this capitalistic society, etc., where we find ourselves today.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to move on with a modern society, to try to achieve our type of thing in a modern society at the same time, there would be radical changes. Like so, it's there would be a lot of radical changes. So if we still had businesses, they wouldn't be run the same way, like capital way. So everything would be radically different. So I think it is. I consider it possible to have what Professor D and I want. I think in like a sort of modern society. That's what I think. Then
Mm-hmm.
Professor D, do you agree or no?
Um, if anything, I'd say give it a few generations because I mean I've already used this point before, but again it's bouncing off the idea of stagnancy in thought, or I guess a stagnancy in philosophies in America, where you have all these generations, and most notably something like I'm going to reference baby boomers that are really hell bent on this very stagnant view of society, where it has to be this way and nothing, and we have to stay on this path, right? No, like they're not very open to new ideas. So I feel like once generations like Generation Z becomes more dominant in society, that you start seeing changes towards what we wanted.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
well,
agree.
what we will want. Well,
Right,
no,
right.
what we want right now. Okay,
Yeah.
oopsies.
No, I agree with what you're saying. But do you think we can have anarchy and collective land ownership, etc., with a modern society, or do you
No.
think, or do yeah,
Modern?
like, or do you think it has
Okay,
to
hold
be
on,
all the
hold
way
on.
primitive
Mm,
for it to exist?
I just well, I don't know. I don't think so. And especially as someone who is an accelerationist, um,
I
I
think
just
I think we should talk about this and then I think we should develop this idea. This is interesting. Not
like
not
as
not right now. I think we should incubate it. But continue with what you're
Mhm.
saying.
yeah, but as a acceleration, like the reason why I side with accelerationism because I don't think there's no stopping this train. You just gotta let it derail itself. Because eventually it's going to be it's going very fast and eventually it's going to be getting to a curve, a really sharp turn, and you know what happens there.
Well,
um
okay, yeah, we do know what happens there, but I think we should try to stop that. But Marquavias, can you weigh in on this? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the only way for this to happen in a modern society is, like you said before, for there to be like either radical changes or for like the group of people that want this, like there has to be some brute force to overthrow this current system and to change this current system. In my opinion, I do not think I don't think it's going to happen because the one thing these people rely on, the ones that are in control of everything like this current system, the one thing they rely on is power. So they're going to go to like unmeasurable like ways to keep like stay with it, like have this power. So it's going to be extreme. Like if you were to do this right now, it would be extremely difficult, and I just don't think it's realistic.
It's actually really interesting. Um, okay, what do you think? Should we wrap up? I don't know.
yeah, I think we filled up the bucket.
Yeah.
That was really
I think.
interesting. I think we hit some
Yeah,
really interesting shit here. We're definitely gonna come back to a couple of things.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I definitely enjoyed going off on those tangents. um so I guess we'd like to thank the listeners for listening in on this episode. We hope you come back for the next one. Don't forget, follow Friendly Bookshelf on Instagram. Um, I don't know, just a customary reminder. Um, yeah, so thanks for listening.
Marquavius, say goodbye to the listeners.
Goodbye.
And thank you for Marquavias for coming on to the show. It was a
Oh, no
pleasure.
problem. I hope you have me on again. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. This was fun.